There's a lot that we don't talk about, sometimes due to embarrassment, fear, insecurities. We neglect discussions about the most common parts of our lives, things we all deal with, sometimes every day. But on the Caffeinated Gypsy podcast, together, we'll break all of those taboos and talk open and honest about shared experiences. Knowledgeable people relating things you felt but never put into words. Parenting, sex, fitness, energy, anything to connect you to your authentic self, unfiltered. Now, the Caffeinated Gypsy herself, a free spirit, world traveler with a passion for fitness and exploring topics that others might avoid. Hello, and welcome to the Caffeinated Gypsy podcast. I'm Stephanie Cotton, your host. Thank you all so much for being with me today. I'm excited because we're going to talk about coffee today, which is one of my favorite subjects. If you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen all of my coffee paraphernalia, all of my coffee posts. There's a reason I'm called the Caffeinated Gypsy. I'm slightly obsessed. And I'm really excited because I'm going to share with you guys my process behind coffee and crystals and sort of where this all came from, how I use coffee as a ritual in my everyday life, and then also how I use it in like sacred rituals. So I'm just going to share with you my whole entire process. I'm doing something a little different from most people because I'm always a little outside the box. So if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I just want to drink my fucking coffee, I don't care about complicating it, I think you'll be surprised because most of this is actually really simple. And I'm just going to share with you how we can, take something that we're using every single day anyways, most of us, and we can turn it into a ritual. What else is going on? Let's do some updates. Let's talk astro for a second. So Mercury has finally moved back into Leo, which is a really good thing. If you guys remember, I think we're going back like 7 weeks now. Mercury had moved into Leo. So Mercury is what rules communication. And then it moved backwards again because we went retrograde. So it went back into Cancer. So it's been a very emotional summer for the most part. Lots of kind of digging deep down in and, facing a lot of karmic issues, family patterns, things like that. But now we're moving into Leo, and Leo is all about pleasure, social, love life, hobbies. It's just a really good time. It's ruled by the sun. So this should be helping you as far as like your internal communication, even just how you're communicating with other people. It's probably going to make you want to be a little bit more social, whereas before maybe you were feeling a little more introverted. So I'll be doing a podcast on that very soon. But just if you've noticed sort of a shift, that's why I think this is a really good time to focus on just our internal dialogue with self being a little bit more positive. I've been talking a lot about this with just the throat chakra, is doing things that make us happy creatively. Leo is a very creative sign. So this is a really good time to pick up hobbies and things like that maybe you've been kind of interested in, but you haven't really done anything with. Even maybe joining a new group of people to go explore something, like whether it's like a hiking group or an art class or something like that. Leo is really supportive of that, especially in the sign of Mercury. So get on that, guys. Start evolving a little bit more. If you've been kind of holding back, now is a really good time to take advantage of that. Uranus went retrograde. I am going to do a podcast on that. Jupiter went direct. So that was good. They basically just swapped places. Like I always tell everybody, these planets go retrograde all the time. Uranus goes retrograde once a year, so this is not a surprise. In fact, it's going to sit retrograde for 6 months. So this isn't something that I expect to really be a surprise for anybody. Not that we're not affected by this, because we absolutely are. But when you have the outer planets go retrograde, it's not as obvious sometimes as some of the closer planets like Mercury. But we are going to see lots of shifts, lots of change. Uranus is the rebel. It's really quick change. So I think we're definitely going to see a lot of people like shifting, a lot of push towards independence, people getting outside the box. So definitely a lot of stuff going on. So that's like a quick little astro update. Some stuff that's going on. You can still order mugs if you want to get your Caffeinated Gypsy Soul mug. You can get that on my website at Caffeinated Gypsy. You can purchase the Coffee and Crystals vinyl sticker now. I'm really excited about these. They go perfect on like a Yeti or, like a travel mug or travel water cup. And you can wash them a decent amount. So, I mean, I wouldn't stick it in the dishwasher, but I run mine underwater and it's holding up pretty good. Also, they look really cool in like journals and stuff like that. So if you want to get your Coffee and Crystal sticker, there's also a Caffeinated Gypsy Soul sticker on there as well. So you can check those out. And then I'm trying to keep up with everything because there's so much. We have the coffee ritual, which is happening on the 14th online. So this is going to be an online full moon event. So if you want to come hang out with me, and we're going to be doing these at 2 different times. I believe one is at 1 o'clock Eastern time. The other one is at 7:30 Eastern time. And we're going to do a coffee ritual. So if you've been curious about how I use coffee, you're going to get to taste that, literally. So you can bring your own coffee. And it's not that we're going to drink a ton of coffee. So if you're worried about like, oh, it's going to interrupt my sleep, we're only going to be working with a little bit of coffee. We're really just working with the properties of coffee. So you're just going to sip it. So you don't have to worry about having too much caffeine. And as always, if you want to book an astrology chart, like a natal chart, or you want to do past life regression, you can always find that over on my website. Ooh, last thing, Patreon. I told you guys, man, I've got so much stuff going on. If you'd like to join the Caffeinated Gypsy tribe over at Patreon, there's lots of different ways you can do this. And then you're going to get access to the Caffeinated Gypsy tribe only podcast that comes out once a month. And then you get access to my morning astro updates. I do a video every morning. And then you're just part of the group. Everybody is in a Facebook group and people are posting pictures and asking questions, and everybody's just super, super awesome in this group. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I think we have a really amazing group. So if you want to come hang out with us, we would love to have you. All right, let's talk about coffee. This is like, I'm literally like smiling because coffee makes me so fucking happy. And this is something that I've wanted to do for a really long time. So I'm really excited that I finally kind of got the balls to do this. So let's talk about coffee and crystals. This is something that I have started, oh my gosh, guys, probably like 4 years ago. I kind of dreamed this up. Not to say I'm the only person that's ever been like, oh, coffee and crystals goes good together, but I started noticing coffee's always been something that I've loved, but I can like sit back. I was talking to my husband about this the other day. I was like, I'm trying to remember when it changed for me, where it went from being like, oh, I just like coffee, to like, oh, this is something that like deeply penetrates my soul. And, I think as you get older, your tastes change and you go through these like, evolutionary periods of your life. And I can remember like, I used to think that the very best coffee to me at the time, like years ago, was if I went to Target, they had this like coconut flavored coffee. And I was like, that was like my favorite coffee in the whole entire world. And I kind of laugh now because there's nothing wrong with it. But now my coffee palette has changed so much just from being exposed to so many different types of coffee. I'm like, that to me was like the creme de la creme of coffee at the time. So it's definitely shifted over the years. Now, look at me, I'm out here like roasting coffee. And I never would have imagined that's where this would have taken me. But one of the things I think really shifted for me was when, I think, and I might have told you guys this story before, when I was in massage school, I started learning a lot about food and just how things were processed. And I started having coffee that was organic for the first time. And that was like really eye-opening to me. And even though at the time, like I really couldn't afford to buy organic coffee or anything like that, anytime like we would go do something in school, we'd always like grab like a, like a coffee. And at the time I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to be buying like bags of organic coffee. Like, that's insane to me. And then when me and my husband split up a few years later, that's how he would like coax me over to his house. He would go to Whole Foods and he would buy this organic counterculture coffee and would be like, hey, and at the time counterculture only did coffee in like a green bag with a bird on it, and he'd be like, hey, I got the bag, you know, the green bag coffee that you like, and I'd be like, fuck this guy. And so I'd go over to his house and have coffee, so there's part of me that's very sentimental to that particular like counterculture. Like, you guys helped save my marriage, y'all are awesome. But that's when I think I started to notice a huge shift just in like, I was drinking it on a regular basis and I was like, man, this feels different than drinking like Folgers or something like that. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I drink Folgers, like, there's nothing wrong with that. I always equate this when we start talking about coffee that's like really, I don't know. I don't want to use the word high end, but like a really pure coffee. It's just like anything. It's like tea. If you look at tea, there's like cheaper versions of tea. Like, you know, you could drink like, I don't know, a Nest tea or something like that. And maybe that tastes like amazing. Like, my son fucking loves those Arizona teas. And I'm like, dude, you're not drinking like real tea. And he's like, but it's got like 10% of tea in it. And it's not that it's bad. It's just a different quality. And so, I started noticing just like a different, like, it felt different to me. Like, I would feel different. But also too, I just tasted so much better as I got used to like how complex coffee was. And I'm not going to sit and talk to you about the complexity of coffee and all the notes and all that shit. I could, but I won't bore you to that. So over the years, we just started, you know, trying out lots of different types of coffees, and I just got really fascinated with it. And so when we moved back to North Carolina, at this point I was drinking like fair trade, single origin coffee, but I hadn't roasted my own coffee yet. And then I was going through a period, and I think I've shared this with you guys before, where I was deeply depressed. Like, I went through 2 years where I was in like severe depression. And the only thing that would make me feel better was coffee. And even before we had moved back to North Carolina, I didn't even realize at the time, but I was really, really depressed. And Eric would come home from work, and there were days where like at this time I was like a hardcore CrossFit person. And there was days where I was like, I can't even get into the gym. And he would be like, let's just go get a coffee. And there was something about just sitting and having a coffee that always kind of perked me up. So when we moved back here, and I was like completely out of like a routine, like I wasn't going to the gym, I just felt like my life was literally like crashing down on me. Coffee was one of the few things that still would kind of perk me up. So it was to the point where even like my son would be like, Mom, I'm going to go make you a coffee. And I would be like, no, I'm fine. I'd be like laying in bed, and he would come in with coffee, because they like just knew like that was something that was like one of the few things that really perked me up. And so once I got out of my depression, I started like slowly coming out of it, and I started thinking, man, if coffee makes me feel better, what else can I do to this coffee to make it even better? Because I've always been a really big believer in the power of energy and infusing things with energy. Like, if you look at food, I always like joke with my son, who's a chef. I'm like, you know, if you're not happy, your food's not going to taste as good. If you ever go to a restaurant and you can tell like they just don't give a shit, the food never tastes as good. But if you go somewhere where the people are really happy, and it doesn't matter, it could be this like fucking hole in the wall, but if the people are really happy and they love what they do, like, I feel like the food always tastes so much better. And so I started thinking about that same concept when it came to coffee. I was like, well, man, if I can like infuse my coffee with something, like, how can I make this coffee like so much better? And so it became really important to me that I knew where my coffee was coming from. And so it was around the same time that my husband was working. He was doing a job somewhere, and he was like, dude, Stephanie, these people roast their own coffee. And it's something we'd been talking about doing, but we hadn't done. He was like, you would not believe like the difference. So he brought me home this coffee that had been roasted that day. And I was like, game changer, like game changer. Not only did it taste just amazing, y'all, I can't even really describe to you the difference between freshly roasted coffee. But it just, like, it made me feel better. I was like, man, this is different than like going to the grocery store and like grabbing a bag of coffee that's been through like God knows how many hands. It's been sitting in this grocery store and collecting all this energy. And this is something like it went straight from the plantation to this guy's house, and he lived on this farm, and he was a really happy dude, and like, I don't know, like, it just, I could feel it in the coffee. So then I was like, okay, well, now I'm gonna start roasting my own coffee, but what else can I do to this coffee? And it started making me think about how at the time I was taking my water, and I was at this point, y'all, I was like trying just to get out of fucking depression. So I was doing anything and everything. And so I was, putting messages on my water bottle to infuse it with love and all of this stuff. And I'm always been really big into like affirmations and sound healing, anything to raise the vibration. I believe very much in this. So I was like, why are we not doing this to our coffee? Right? Like, if we can put all of this energy into food, if we can put all this energy into like water, if we can put all this energy into other things, like, why do we not do this with something that we're drinking every single day? And for me, like, this is the first thing that I do in the morning. I get up and I sit and I drink my coffee. And so I started thinking, like, how do I make this something that really impacts my day? Like, in just like a whole other level. So this is when I started playing around with the crystals. I was like, man, we crystal charge stuff all the time. Like, we use crystals to balance the chakras, like, and those are complex energy like things, right? So I figured like a coffee bean's got to be a little less complex than a chakra, right? So I started working with crystals and putting it into my coffee. And so the way I do this is I cure my coffee with crystal beans. So it's very similar to like if you would cure your coffee like in a whiskey barrel or something like that. And so I've played around with this for several years, and I've been like just thinking, okay, so first I started with crystals. I would use different crystals and I would let them set in the beans and charge the beans. And then it was like, okay, well, how do I take this a little bit further? Well, sound is super powerful. Let's try to infuse it with sound healing. So I started doing this sound healing. And then it was like, okay, well, that's pretty powerful. What else can I do with this? And then it was like, oh, well, I know Reiki. Like, I've been, once again, like, if you can use Reiki to help balance somebody's chakras or remove, stuff from the body, stagnation, whatever, like, why can't we charge our coffee beans with this? So I started using Reiki on my beans, and I just started noticing like a huge difference in how I was feeling by using these beans. And so then I started getting really particular about where I was. Like, I wasn't, obviously I'm using green beans, I'm picking these beans, but then it wasn't just that. It was like, okay, but like, I want to know that I'm getting these beans from a source that is ethical. These people are being treated well. So I started working with a company who gave you all that information. They told you about the farm. They were fair trade. They used another process that is about equal wages. Because I felt like it was super important that I was using a bean where the people that were picking it or growing it were happy. And also it was really important to me that they were being treated well, because I'm really big on, people being treated well. And I just can't ethically, buy something that I know the people aren't being treated fairly. So that was the next step. It's like, okay, let's make sure that we're using a bean that the people are being treated really good and they're infusing it with really good energy. And so it's literally just been like over the past, I would say 4 years of me trial and error, like, okay, let's try to use this crystal, or let's try to do this, or let's try to put it under the full moon. Let's try to do an eclipse coffee. And so this is something I've held really closely, like to my own heart for several years as I've kind of played around with this and noticed a difference in my life. And I'm like, I've got to share this because this has like been so powerful for me. And it's also just so much fun, you guys. Like, I don't know. So for me, I feel like everybody has like a plant that is like almost like a spirit guide that they really resonate with. For some people it might be ferns, or some people it might be like succulents, or like whatever. For me, it's the coffee plant. And so I got this coffee plant around the same time, and we've been growing together, me and this plant. I've had it for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now. And I got it. It was this little baby. It was literally in a little coffee cup when I got it. And it's been interesting just working with that, because I feel like I pull a lot of energy and I get like a lot of insight from just this plant. And there's been moments where the plant wasn't doing so good. And then I've had to really like learn how to work with this plant. And so for me, I felt like it was super important that I could really like, I don't know. I know it sounds like crazy to some people, but I wanted to be able to connect with this plant in some way and really understand it. So that way when I'm working with the beans, like I feel like there's this connection to the beans and I'm using it in so much more than just like, hey, I want to have a good drink. Don't get me wrong, guys, coffee's fucking awesome. We're going to drink it and have fun with it. But also too, there's something very sacred about coffee. You know, sacred is the perfect word for coffee because a lot of times we don't realize that this is a very ancient medicine that's been used for centuries. It wasn't always just like, hey, let's go grab coffee. This was something that was being used medicinally. This is something that monks and nuns used during rituals to help them connect higher to God or divine power. So this isn't something that's always just been like a common, like, hey, let's go grab a drink. For many, many years, hundreds of years, this was considered medicine and it was considered something to be done in ritual. And so for me, I really resonate with that because this is how I start my day every single day. And if I'm going to do something every single day, it needs to be beneficial. If this is the start to my day, then I need to make sure that it's like on point because this is setting the tone for everything that's going to happen during the day. So the first way I started working with this in ritual was I just would sit with my coffee. And so coffee in itself has aromatherapy properties, so it works on the olfactory senses. So just smelling it wakes you up, invigorates you. It releases serotonin. So for me, I wanted to make sure that I was really getting the most benefit at it. So I sit and I drink my coffee, but before I drink it, I'm like smelling it. I'm really sitting with it. And so as I'm doing that, I'm also seeing like, how can I use the energy from this coffee? So this is where my astrology comes in. Because the guys, when I do something, I'm like all in. And I know to like the outside word, it's like, oh, she's like just jumping around, but it's not. Like I am literally like, okay, here's this thing that I'm super, super passionate about. How does this like line up with all the other stuff that I love so much? And for me, it was understanding it from an astrological standpoint because everything is ruled by the astros. Everything. And so coffee is ruled by Mars, and Mars is what gives us our action. This is what gives us our ability to go after our goals. And so think about that for a second. What does coffee do? It gets you up and going. It enlivens you, right? It makes you feel good, passionate. And so when I'm drinking my coffee, that's what I'm thinking about is how can I take this Mars energy from the coffee and really I pull it through my chakras. So I focus on pulling all the energy through my chakras to really get me motivated. And I put all that energy into my goals for the day. So when I drink my coffee in the morning, I am like writing down, like, what do I want to do today? Like what needs to be done? And I prioritize. And as an entrepreneur, it's super important that I have this time in the morning because otherwise I'm just chasing my tail. So for me, coffee has been this ritual practice of aligning this energy of the coffee with my goals. So I'm thinking about, okay, like today I need to, post this on Instagram. I need to do this on my website. I need to email this client. I need to blah, 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 blah. And then I'm thinking about how does this all fit into like my big plan of life, my purpose. And then I pull all that energy from the coffee and I really think about like literally putting it into all these goals to help drive everything. So I'm thinking about that. I'm also looking at like, okay, astrologically, like what's going on today? How can I use this Mars energy from my coffee to balance out whatever else is going on during the day? So that's my sort of like crazy method. The other thing that I think about was pulling all of that energy from Mars through my chakras, right? So I'm opening up my chakras. That's one of the first things I do in the morning to wake everything up, to get everything going. I'm pulling all this energy up through my chakras and really waking everything up so that I can get after what I need to do for the day. So there's a lot of things going into just sipping on this coffee as I'm sitting there. And so this in itself is a ritual. I am not worried about anything else. I'm worried about setting up my day, getting myself motivated, and really pulling from all this energy from the coffee. Now let's add in some crystals to that, right? So let's say I'm working with quartz, which is what I've been working with a lot lately. We're doing clear quartz. This is an amplifier. So quartz is going to amplify all of that energy. So it's going to make that energy be more sustainable. It's also going to allow you to really put that energy into whatever you want. So I try to focus it, which is why I write things down. That way it's focused energy and it's not just like, blah, I have all this energy, but now I'm not really sure where I'm directing it. So I'm like, okay, from this time to this time, this is what I'm working on. From this time to this time, this is what I'm working on. And so I'm thinking about how I'm directing all of that energy. The other thing I've noticed with using crystals is it makes the energy last longer. It's a little bit more sustainable versus that like jittery first, if you get that coffee in the morning and you kind of get those jitters. What I've noticed with the crystals is it helps kind of balance it out so that it takes it out further, so that it's not like that jittery coffee feeling that you get in the morning. That's just me personally. That's what I have found. So for me personally, that's what I have found to be super, super helpful. And then once again, it's using that coffee as a ritual to start my day. So I'm sipping on that coffee. I'm focusing on my goals. I'm focusing on how do I feel right now. Especially as I get into winter months, this becomes so important for me because I suffer from seasonal depression. I have to have a ritual in the morning to keep me like going. And if I have this already in place, then I'm like, okay, you know what you need to do, Stephanie? You're going to sit down, you're going to have your coffee, and we're going to plan our day. How am I showing up for myself today? Well, if we're already sipping on something that's got a really high vibration that is chock full of antioxidants, it's got a little bit of caffeine to kind of get you going. It's charged with crystals. It's got, the vibration from the singing bowl in it. We've got Reiki infused. Like, that's a pretty good fucking way to start your day. I don't know about you guys, but like, I think that sounds pretty amazing. And then when you sip on that coffee, you really do feel the difference. Like, it gives you sort of this buzz, like, I feel really happy, I feel really good, you feel confident. And so that's been like my whole goal with like creating this coffee, is like I wanted to put like the highest vibration I could into a cup for you. And that's what I'm doing. So whenever you get your coffee, it'll already be charged for you. So that's been my whole method with just my daily coffee and that ritual. Then I was like, okay, so if monks were using this as a ritual during meditation, I think I need to try this. So then I started meditating with my coffee. And holy moly, you guys, it doesn't have to be a lot of coffee, but it definitely helps keep me like aligned and attuned to my higher self. I don't recommend drinking a ton of coffee because then you get jittery, but like a cup of coffee, half a cup of coffee. So I started doing this before meditation, and I noticed that I was able to just like get into my higher self so much quicker. It also helped keep me really aware, and that vibration I felt like was really helping me connect to like source energy. And so when I was going into like meditations and I was talking with my spirit guides and stuff like that, I felt like it was, or I feel like even still, it's helped me really be able to tap into that energy because I'm like drinking something that's vibrating so high. And then I was like, okay, all right, let's take this a little bit further. Let's see how we can use this energy from this coffee to start working with like the moon. And so that's what I've been doing the last few months on the DL, because I was like, this is going to sound crazy. Not that it matters, but I was like, okay, Stephanie, we're going to take this a little bit further down the rabbit hole. And I did. And so now it's about taking that coffee and aligning that with that lunar energy and setting goals with that. So that's what we're going to be doing in this, get my words out now, this full moon event that I'm having in a couple of days. And so when we're working with coffee for the full moon, we're really working on using all that energy to disperse. So we're thinking about letting go and dispersing. And so we're taking all that, like, elixir, and we're using it to move things. And then with the new moon, we're using all that Mars energy to connect to our goals and what we're trying to manifest, and really taking that vibration and putting it into our goals, so that once again, we're working with sustainability. And so this is something that I started a couple months ago. And I have to tell you guys, it's been interesting. I tend to be very reactionary. I have a lot of air in my chart, so I'm like, yes, let's do this now. And so I've been working really hard on doing things a little bit slower and creating goals and working through each of the steps. And so what I've noticed for myself is utilizing doing like a coffee ritual while I'm setting these intentions has really helped me once again get that sustainable energy for a longer period of time and keep me on track and focused. A lot of the goals that I've been setting have been longer goals, and usually I get like really like bogged down, and then I get really bored and I'm like, never mind. This is too far out for me. I got to do something now. And so I've noticed that this has really kind of helped balance me a little bit. And even though we have all this Mars energy from the coffee that's really driving, and we have this amplified energy from the crystals, turning that focus a little bit and putting it towards like, okay, I'm going to set these goals and I want this energy to stay with those goals for the long term has really, really been beneficial. So there's going to be more coming out about this in the next few months as I perfect this even more. And I'm going to share with you guys my whole entire process. If you want to get a taste of this, we are going to be doing this on Wednesday, the 14th. You're more than welcome to come join. You can sign up. You need to go to my website and sign up for that. But you guys, it's exciting. I think once you try my coffee, you're going to see like just the difference. And it's just really good coffee. I use really good coffee. It tastes really delicious, which is super important to me, but I'm using it from a really good source. And then we're adding all these high vibes to it. Like, how could that be a bad thing, right? Everything that I'm doing, I'm being very thoughtful of, even into like the packaging. I'm so excited. I got my label in today, and it's like a hologram, so it has this crystal vibe to it. I'm keeping everything really small for right now because it's really important to me that everything I'm doing is high quality, and I'm putting 100% of my energy and myself into it. So everything's going to be on a small scale for right now. I am going to be doing a specialty blend once a season. So my first one is going to be coming out probably mid-September. That's what I'm shooting for. I'm shooting for a release date of the coffee on the new moon, the next one. So I believe that's August 31st. I have to look again. Or is it September 1st? August 30th. So that's my projected date for the release of the house blend coffee, which is going to be crystal charged with quartz. And then I have a pumpkin spice one coming out, and I'm really excited about this. Guys, we were testing it yesterday, and it literally tastes like pumpkin spice. And I don't know about you guys, but nothing says fall like pumpkin spice lattes. And I, if you guys have listened to me, I haven't drank Starbucks in a really long time, but that's one of my favorite like fall memories. And so if you love pumpkin spice lattes from Starbucks, you're gonna love this. I have perfected, I think, the blend. And I did something really fun, and I've got a pumpkin spice sugar infusion if you want to get that as well, which makes it even better if you do sugar. So that's going to be the specialty blend that's coming out. So we're going to initially have a house blend, and then I'm going to do a ritual blend. And that's going to be one that you're only going to use for ritual, and that one's going to be super duper charged. So that's going to be something you would use for like eclipses or full moons, new moons. It should last you a good bit because you're only going to use a little bit. And then as we go through the seasons, we'll have like one specialty blend, I think, come out at a time. So lots of exciting stuff. So be on the lookout for that. The coffee, like I said, I'm hoping to release it on the 30th, and that's definitely going to be first come, first serve. But guys, I'm telling you, you can step up your coffee game. There's so much you can do with it. It really is magical. And I can't wait for you to try it because I think you're going to notice a huge difference. I'm not even going to get into all the different benefits of the crystals that we're going to be using. I don't like to make like claims to things too much. I don't want to be like, oh, you're going to have increased wealth or things like that. But the crystals that we're using are very powerful, and they do have a lot of attributes. So whenever we get everything up on the site, you'll be able to go and look at the crystals we're using, and I'll have all of the attributes of those crystals so you can see what exactly is going into that coffee. So that's my coffee news, guys. I'm really excited. All right, y'all. So thank you so much for listening. And
for all the people who judge without knowing, just throw the peace on, tell them good vibes only.